Now, you're probably aware of this article, which was posted recently by The Hollywood Reporter, and many people are talking about this. Is Disney bad at Star Wars? An analysis. This article was written by James Hibbard, and I think this is an interesting conversation to have. And it says, high budgets, scrapped projects, fan backlash. It's been 12 years since Disney bought Star Wars, and its galaxy far, far away arguably has too many broken toys. So just looking at the opening lines of this article, there's an exchange in Star Wars The Force Awakens when Rey and Finn are fleeing from stormtroopers and searching for a way to escape. Rey spots the legendary Millennium Falcon, declares it looks like garbage, and then quickly reconsiders the garbage will do. Increasingly, that's the attitude some fans have about Disney's Star Wars programming. Look, we all know this isn't fantastic anymore, but Star Wars is still Star Wars, and therefore it will do. To be fair, Disney's Star Wars shows and movies remain far from space junk. Their titles typically get glowing reviews from critics and generate box office returns and streaming ratings that other studios would envy, though at a high cost. I think it's a fairly balanced article and quite reasonable, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, so I'll just leave it there and let you check it out. It's linked below. But it's fascinating that the question is even being asked. Is Disney bad at Star Wars? Well, they purchased Lucasfilm in 2012, and they went off then and made Force Awakens, which was released in 2015, which was the first of a new sequel trilogy. Now, I think the film wasn't bad, though it was clear that Rey was going to be this unrealistically competent female protagonist. It was disappointing and unsatisfying how Han Solo was killed off, and he, Leia, and Luke never got on screen together. Many fans still very disappointed at that missed opportunity. And the film was ostensibly a kind of modernized remake of the story of A New Hope, but it still worked, and it pulled in $2 billion at the box office, so it was very successful. I'm sourcing this box office information from Box Office Mojo. But The Last Jedi was poor. I didn't like the story. I didn't like some of the characters and situations. I didn't like how it was written. I didn't like the pacing or the ending. And in the end, all the little issues in that film added up to a noticeable box office decline. Almost a $700 million drop when compared to Force Awakens. The Last Jedi brought in $1.3 billion. And then finally there was Rise of Skywalker, which I think played it immensely safe in terms of plot. It felt very paint by numbers, and again, there was a further box office decline. It made $1,077 million. So although the sequel trilogy movies were successful financially, their box office returns decreased with each movie, and they weren't cheap movies to make. They were very expensive. Rogue One was a kind of similar story, slightly lower budget than Rise of Skywalker, but it did pretty good, and it was among the stronger of the recent films. It made $1 billion. Solo: A Star Wars Story was anything but successful, however. A film that underwent substantial reshoots, and it wasn't a particularly strong movie. It made just $392 million at the box office. Now, of course, there's been many animated productions over the years. I'm not going to focus so much on those, just focusing on the live action content because that's where the majority of eyeballs tend to be. The TV series that Disney has produced over the years, I think they've been very hit and miss. Generally speaking, people praise the early seasons of The Mandalorian, but the show declined in popularity by season 3. Andor is generally considered a strong Star Wars series taking place before Rogue One. Star Wars does tend to love its prequels, after all, doesn't it? And rarely moves forward chronologically, which, as I've said many times before, I think is a huge mistake. But for every Andor and Mandalorian, you've got to contend with the Book of Boba Fett and The Acolyte. Two really bad series, the latter of which became meme-worthy in terms of how cringe it was. Ahsoka and Obi-Wan Kenobi seem to garner more mixed, middle-of-the-road audience reactions. Sort of good, not great kind of thing. There's fans who really love those two shows, but neither series really set the franchise on fire, I think it's fair to say. And I think this is the problem with Star Wars under Disney. So putting it all on a spectrum with The Stunning and Brave of The Acolyte on one end, and Force Awakens, Andor, Early Mandalorian, and Rogue One on the other end, it's all a bit underwhelming. For the most part, Disney Star Wars runs the gamut from poor to good, not great. And that's the central issue. For a much revered franchise with a long-running history of being iconic and a major cinematic phenomenon that changed cinema, okay, the latest productions under Disney have felt like expensive follow-ups, lacking the heart and originality of the original trilogy. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again, modern Star Wars feels like a bit of a tribute band to itself. I think that is fundamentally the problem with Star Wars under Disney. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching. Take care, guys. Subscribe for more. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.